Hi, this is Larry Podsobinski, author of In the Grip of Paranoid Schizophrenia, as published as of late September 2018 for a third edition. It's the third edition we're talking about here now. The other two are obsolete, and there were things wrong with them. So I decided to write a third edition and take out all the philosophy and write more about the illness and more lead or ways of thinking of it. The writing of the book took over 21 years. So the story kind of like floats around, but I've been told that you don't notice it though because I refer back to what year I'm talking about. But I was thinking today to give you an idea of what you'll get if you buy this book. If you're interested in the subject, I'm going to read. I want to read the. I'm going to read the foreword written by my psychiatrist, Dr. Maura Andronic. Thank you. Uh, I want to read this now. This has been kept the same in the first, second, and third editions. Some things, a couple of words could have maybe changed in the last edition here, but we didn't go into changing anything in the foreword. So I'll read it as it's been and still exists by Dr. Maura Andronic. She says, I met Larry when he was already feeling well. My job as his psychiatrist at that point was in his recovery was fairly easy. I encouraged him to take his medications and continue to do what he was already doing. Larry had already won the battle with his illness, and working with him was surprisingly smooth. This comes in sharp contrast with the treatment of patients in earlier phases of their recovery. For me, it is especially rewarding to see a patient recovering from schizophrenia and being able to function in society. Then Larry told me about his project, writing a book about his experiences with schizophrenia. I became immediately interested in reading it, and while I was especially intrigued and fascinated by his straightforward, open, and touching account of his encounter with this illness. The book details Larry's experiences as he comes to terms with a brain and mind that no longer follow his dictates. From his inability to hold a job or continue his education to his incarnation of John Lennon, Larry's book guides the reader through an intimate journey inside the schizophrenic mind. It is a tale of hard lessons filtered through his expectations and dreams. He underwent many difficult experiences, such as using drugs and believing that he had caused his illness until he learned otherwise. He experimented with the old antipsychotic medications and had to live with significant side effects without major improvement. He had to deal with law enforcement and was many times committed to a hospital against his will. He had to live a lonely life, estranged from his family and from his fellow men. He had to live in constant suspicion and fear that he would be killed, quote unquote, again by his enemies. In all, the splendid read takes you on a ride through heaven and hell, wellness and illness, and lays bare the inner workings of a psychotic mind. I had the wellness and illness there. That was an earlier version, but and lays bare the inner workings of a psychotic mind. Uh, Nevertheless, this book of painful exploration ends on a note of healing. Larry was eventually able to find the right medication that helped him become well. In only a few days after being started on a new drug, Risperdal, his long held delusions were gone, particularly the one where he believed he was John Lennon. At this juncture, that the hardest part of his recovery took place. Quite possibly the most painful experience of all for Larry was to relinquish a long cherished delusion and face real life. Really, really, that was pretty easy. I mean, you just had to deal with reality and you didn't sometimes like it, but that's just it. I mean, it is what it is. But anyway, was, was to relinquish a long cherished delusion and face real life. Larry had to face and accept the reality of his illness. Well, this is true. As the long years spent in another world, which robbed him of his youth, he had to face and accept the limitations of his illness, which, despite being much under control, were not completely gone. He had to struggle with adapting his life to the residual symptoms that in themselves could be demoralizing. Larry had to experiment again with his medications and accept that his illness was gone only as long as he took them. The relapse is a constant threat and remainder of his limitations. Even harder to accept was the lack of an intimate relationship. Fortunately, Larry has many friends that support him through tough moments, but throughout this book, the longing for a soulmate is painfully present. Larry had to accept the irrevocable passage of time, the fact that he is not young anymore, the fact that his mother is ill, and that maybe he will never have the relationship that he could have with her if the illness would not have kept them apart. There's a footnote here that says, "My mother passed away during the writing of this book. I will talk about more about her and my family in the story," Larry Podsobinski. And then the footnote ends, kept them, what illness would not have kept them apart. Mostly, Larry continues, mostly Larry had to find a purpose in his life and a reason to continue the struggle to stay well. What we may take for granted, Larry has to struggle and fight for. What it comes easily to us, Larry has to labor, at times painfully, to obtain. So then Dr. Andronic closes by saying, throughout Larry's account, amid desperation and indomitable fear of losing his grip on life, a timeless and beautiful message shines through. There is no shame, there is no blame, there is hope. This book encourages self-determination with respect to treatment and lifestyle. It is a thoughtful examination of ability, hope, and healing, and it gives the reader a rare opportunity to probe into the inner thoughts of an intelligent man as he copes, relates, exists, and eventually triumphs over schizophrenia. Maura Andronic, MD. Thank you, Dr. Andronic. And if you have an interest in the book, it's available on Amazon.com or wherever you buy your books. Should have it. It's can you read that? It's got that on it and some writing on the back, and you get all kind of things. You get parts of my Secret Service file, for goodness sake. I'm sorry. Uh, but you get UFO schematic diagrams of I should say psychotic UFO schematic diagrams. If that's what you're interested in, I mean, I don't want to give away some of the things that'll blow your mind to think this actually happened. Articles addressed to me in the mail under what name? I mean, I'm not going to say anymore. But the book has a new ending and new facts in the book and newer facts over the 21 years the book was taken to be written. And if you're interested in it, you can pick up a copy. I don't think an electronic version is available, or at least yet anyway. Uh, so I thank you for your interest, and if you buy a copy, thank you. There's an email address in there where to contact me for questions, and you also get a link to the electronic music I do nowadays that I'm done writing the book and done with my painting, my artwork paintings. I did so many of those from 1984 to 2006, 1984 to 2006, and then I just put them down and went back to electronic music, which I left off with in 1978 when I got too sick to do that. So it's called reintegration, they tell me. Reintegration with yourself or whatever. So peace. Thank you. Bye bye.